How's it going, guys? Katia Castorena and Cristina Alexander to talk about the Liga MX Femenil, a little bit about what this women's tournament has been. Very young right now, but we know that little by little it's becoming even more competitive, and we're seeing even more attention towards the Mexican Soccer League now with the women's side. Katia, something that we were used to with the Liga MX with the men's side, but now it's very exciting that we actually get to talk more about these fantastic players that we are also seeing on an international level, talking about the Spanish league and also trying to dip their toes in the English league. And why not talk about coming back to a World Cup, going back to some Olympic Games for this Mexican national side. And now for the Liga MX and the women's side, let's talk a little bit about what the format actually is, Katia, because a lot of people want to compare it to what it is now with the men's side, but it's a little different.
Yes, Chris, it's very exciting to see the growth of the women's sport in Mexico, and we have both been a part of it since its beginning. The first championship was in 2017. So we're 5 years in, and we've seen the growth, and as you mentioned, the impact that it can eventually have towards the Mexican national team. So it's very exciting to see and to talk about it a little bit more. So as I mentioned, it started in 2017. The format was different, where you had teams divided into two groups, and one teams would actually make it into the playoffs. When they were in the playoffs, and the one that would be crowned champion had not faced every single Liga MX team throughout the season. Now the format changed, where we have teams facing each other all throughout the regular season, and then you have the 8 teams that will make it into the playoffs, starting with the quarterfinals round. So now in the Liga MX men's side, we see that there's a play-in. That is not the case for the women's side. So just the best 8 teams will make it to the next round and then face off, looking to crown the next champion. So I don't know if we should say that it's a little bit more fair once that we don't have those groups, and where everybody gets to play everybody throughout the regular season and actually see what the level is once you get to the playoffs and when you have your champion.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a lot more fair when we talk about 8 teams versus 12 teams that can still make the playoffs. It makes the playoffs that much more interesting, or liguilla, as they call it in the Liga MX Femenil. And that's what we saw really interesting last season with Rayadas of Monterrey right now as the reigning champions. Right now suffered their first loss in the whole season. I mean, we're talking about 12 weeks of matches already, and they just came down. And it wasn't even just a winning streak right now. It was the fact that they hadn't even tied in the last 10 weeks. And of course, we have to talk this week about this rivalry that we have with Katia and with me. Katia loves Xolos, and of course, I'm a Rayadas fan. But that matchup this week is the most talked about game because of what, Katia?
Yes, it's funny that we get to start this segment with such a game this week, where Xolos actually beat Rayadas, the reigning champions. You mentioned it. They had won 10 games out of 10, 30 points, no ties, and then all of a sudden they play in Tijuana, and that streak goes out the window. Tijuana, on the other hand, had not won in over all throughout those weeks, because it had been 10 games that they had to just go through without a win. They won during that first week, and then after that they hadn't been able to secure 3 points, only ties, 3 defeats, and it was until this moment that they had to face Monterrey, and something clicked inside of them. Because if we look at what happened in last year's playoffs, where it was Rayadas, the team that kicked Xolos out of the playoffs, even though they tied in the away and home matches, they tied, but because of the positioning on the table, they weren't able to go through. But they were confident in the fact that it was shocking, but they were confident in the fact that they kind of showed what they were about, that they fought till the end against Rayadas, a team that has been super strong since the beginning of the league. So they were confident in that. Now that they got to face them during this tournament, they wanted to, get a revenge a little bit because of what happened last season, go at them, and then prove at home with their fans what they were capable of, especially because of the pressure of not getting a victory after so many weeks and now being able to get it.
I'm glad for so many reasons for Tijuana, not just because I'm talking to you, Katia, but because I was so shocked at that 6-1 defeat against Atlas, because I was like, I feel like this team isn't a team that's really demonstrating what we saw last season. And now it was kind of a refresher. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Let's remember especially the defensive elements that we have to really just put a stop at what Rayadas has done all season, especially on their offensive side. So you talked about the 10 of 10 games, those 30 points for Monterrey, that came down to a loss. That's why we see that for right now, they haven't shifted at least from those 30 points. Tigres, however, won 6-0 against León, 27 points. And Guadalajara, I want to make emphasis on those two teams because they haven't lost this season. The only two teams who still have a very positive streak. Of course, Monterrey's streak is still very positive, and we still have to look forward to what we will see from them in the playoffs. But now America is up there as well. Pachuca is another team that I had been really disappointed in. I think a lot of people were disappointed in last season because of how badly they did after so many fantastic players were able to join the squad with people like Charlyn Corral, who right now has 11 goals, and we're finally seeing her full potential in this Liga MX tournament. So León, as I said, falls 6-0. And with this victory with Tijuana, they were able to at least come up a few spots. They were where Puebla is right now as number 13. So I'm really glad that we're seeing more positive elements from Tijuana. I hope that they can continue this streak so they can come back to the playoffs, because they were the only team who really made Monterrey kind of tremble, I want to say, for the playoffs, and for really to just kind of get those doubts out of the way and be able to win the championship. But the question is, will they be able to come back after this loss, which I think comes at a really good time for Eva Espejo, their manager at the moment, because they don't have that pressure of having to keep up this streak through the playoffs. That was a pressure that Tigres had last season, and they fell against America. So it's really interesting to see how many teams are really just competing for those first spots, for those first 8 spots, and Xolos is back in the running. Another reason why I want to say this is positive for Tijuana, Katia, is because of Fabiola Vargas. And I loved seeing 2 women on the benches this weekend, just really 2 big names in the Liga MX Femenil being able to have these manager positions, hopefully that spreads like wildfire in this Liga MX Femenil. And which match are you looking forward to this weekend, Katia?
Definitely. I love seeing women. Eva Espejo, by the way, became the first female coach to become a champion in Liga MX with Monterrey last season. And now for week 13, I'm looking forward. Well, we're going to look at this week's games. So Cruz Azul against Atlas, Juárez against Pumas, Monterrey against Santos, Puebla América, Atlético de San Luis Tigres. I'm looking forward to that one, of course, because we're going to have that one for you on ESPN. And then Toluca Querétaro, Pachuca Mazatlán, León Chivas, and Tijuana Necaxa. I'm looking forward to the León Chivas game. We want to see what Chivas is really about, and it's one of the teams that has been strong and has been fighting. They were the first ever champions when the championship started in 2017, and it's, as we know, a team with such tradition in Mexican soccer. So it's interesting to now see it in the women's professional level, and them trying to be a top team in the league. They're trying to find their way to beat Monterrey's teams, both Rayadas and Tigres. And I think we're seeing like special things from this group in this particular season. They have Alicia Cervantes, who is leading that goal scorer table with 11 goals, but Charlyn Corral from Pachuca is also right there. I mean, they're tied with 11 goals. So it's interesting, that one, in terms of the individual duels.
Yeah, I love it. And especially if we're saying that for this table of goal scorers, what I said about Charlyn Corral, let's see if she can take that away from Alicia Cervantes, who, by the way, was injured for a game or two. I can't recall at the moment, but still is up there. So that really just is a testament to what this player can really do for Chivas. I'm really looking forward to the Monterrey Santos match because last season it was one of the most entertaining games ever with just beautiful goals. So I'm really looking forward to how Santos can now try to stop Rayadas just as Xolos just did in this last matchup week. So for now, we have to say goodbye. We want to talk about this a little bit more, but every week you can come back and listen to Katia and listen to me if you want for the Liga MX Femenil wrap up and also a little preview of what's to come this weekend. So for now, we have to say our goodbyes. Katia, thank you so much. And we will see you next time here on ESPN.
Thank you, Chris. Your stop for all women's Liga MX.